those.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say about so I theist, but we were friends anyway?
And it doesn't have anything to do with theism specifically. It has to do with a belief that you hold that somebody else doesn't hold, and yet you can still be friends. A good example of this, you're a good example of this, but another one is Aaron Ra. It's like I love watching Aaron Ra's content, almost all of his content. He did run for state office, and so he did do some political stuff. And when I listened to his political stuff, I was like, dude, I'm 100% against you. Just about on everything you just said, I disagreed with.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to talk to him, and and I pointed out, it's like, look, I don't agree with you politically. I don't agree with your views about the role of government. I don't agree with your solutions for a lot of these things. Dead set against that stuff. I don't like it at all. But that's only one small part of you, and I have a huge amount of respect for what you've done with the all your phylogeny stuff, or phylogeny.
Yeah,
With yeah,
grab the
phylogeny. Your systematic classification of life. I love your anti-theist videos. Tearing apart things like, here's why geology disproves Noah's flood, why dendrochronology disproves. I mean, he's got a whole series of these disproving Noah's flood. He was very influential in my shift from just not even caring enough to really form a belief about a deity to believing that the deities that are at least listed in organized religions don't exist. I don't believe they exist.
Yeah.
Or I believe they do not exist, I should say.
Oh dear Lord, let's not even go there. But yeah.
Right, but I mean, he's been instrumental because he can point out all these things, and it's like, and the things that he's done with, and I look at him, it's like, I have a huge amount of respect for the work that you've done, and I still watch you. I still, when I can, I'm a supporter. It's like I watch your shows. I love all that stuff, and we completely disagree on like what the role of government should be and political answers to problems. And and he actually thanked me and pointed out that that's very rare today, and I agree with him. It's very rare that you can find somebody that you disagree with on one issue and yet agree with them or just enjoy so many other things. Some of the people have asked how I can support certain artists or continue to listen to certain artists, because they've come out as like rabid, almost radical leftists in some instances. And I'm like, first of all, they're entitled to their opinion. I disagree with them, but damn, they're a great songwriter and singer.
Well, and this gets back to one of the things we were talking about earlier, and I think this is important, and I've been thinking about this too, because, and I really want to try to remember the context. I can't. I was having a conversation. This is one of the things that inspired me to say, well, you and I should do a hang, because I was just like, if I had to have someone explain my views, okay, and that's tricky, right? Have somebody else explain my views. That's tricky, because who would you trust to explain your views, who A, understands them, and B, is going to explain them properly? That's not easy, because most people can't. And I was sitting there going, you were one of the people that came on my list first. I was just like, holy, he holds different views, but I expected, I would trust him to repeat them accurately and to do, because I think that's important to you. I think it's important to you that you get it right. And there are people on, quote, my side who that's not as important to, and who might also make my views extremer than they are and make me sound to somebody on the right far more left than I am, or who would. And so I'm sitting there going, so to me, I think what it's about is, I think at least Aaron comes by his views honestly, and there are liberals who don't. There are liberals who want to virtue signal and want to say, I want everybody to see how much I care about the downtrodden and the homeless and the this and that. So and
yeah, they want to
they're
virtue signal.
doing it, yes. And I don't want them representing my views. I don't want them talking about what I believe, because I may agree with them, but I question their motives. And I question the motives, obviously, of a lot of people on the right. Well, I think one reason you and I can get along, and I think one reason that, you could, and this was the Hitchens thing. So Hitchens, a lot of theists said they really liked Hitchens and that they got along with him and that he was very different in person than he was when he was debating. Now, when he's debating, he's got very specific goals and they're not to make friends. And he would mock and he would but he did so against people who could withstand it and other members of the church. When it came down to individuals and their beliefs, but from all reports that I've heard of people who broke bread with him and said, yeah, everybody was invited to his dinner table, didn't matter. And I think it comes down to, are you having an engagement with someone who truly does want to see what's best for as many people as possible? And then it comes down to what you said earlier, which is we're really arguing more over how to achieve that than anything else. And I think I would much rather spend time with somebody with whom we have very serious disagreements about how to get there, but we all agree sort of where we want to go. And we're arguing over methodology versus somebody else who has the same methodology, but I question their motives. Does that make any sense?
Yes, I mean, it's like I'm willing to have an actual honest conversation with you. I'm willing, like say about guns. I'm fairly passionate about the Second Amendment. Even though I see my guns are specifically as tools, I only own specific ones, and I own them for specific reasons, and I don't own any others because they're expensive. I'm willing to talk with you about things that I actually believe that I would never admit to many of the especially leftist media outlets that are pushing, like the 2 gun control bills that are in Congress now. Mm-hmm. I would never sit down with them and say, well, I can agree with these. These are things I also believe about guns. I don't want my federal government mandating these things, but I believe everybody should do this, or talking about the Second Amendment should be amended, or should have already been amended, and they damn sure should do it now. But again, some of those other ones, which I don't find, again, it boils down to, do I think that you're arguing from an honest perspective, or are you pushing an agenda? And it's like most of the places that I've seen pushing the House bill, the HR 8, and the other, I can't remember the number of the other one, the 2 gun control bills. One of them is the assault weapons ban and magazine capacity limitations, and the other one is universal background checks. A lot of the media sources on the left side that are pushing this, I would never engage with them in what I would consider to be kind of a productive debate or productive conversation with them. I would only ever engage with them to literally blow apart their arguments for pushing this, because I don't believe that they're honest in their beliefs. I believe they're pushing an agenda. And the reason is because what they say and what the bills will actually do aren't the same.
Oh, so. Sorry, I don't want to. That gets into. I just got into an argument with an anti-theist not that long ago. Somebody had said that they were a Christian atheist, and an anti-theist came out and said that is an oxymoron, that is a contradiction in terms. It's like, it's actually not. There's nuance there. I understand why it's hard to. And we started getting into this huge argument, and they were just belligerent. And then finally they're like, well, and then they're like, well, yeah, but you believe in God, and I was like, no, I don't. Got an entire website dedicated to anti-theism work. I was just like, are you kidding me? It's like, well, then why the fuck are you after me? I was just like, well, because what you're doing doesn't help. And when you sit there and say people have to sit and your terminology, I said, look, if you look under Christian in the dictionary, it's going to say a number of things, including people who believe in the miracles of Jesus Christ and all these other things. Okay, great, but it's also just people who follow his teachings. Now that's like the second or third one down, but that's an acceptable usage. So if you're somebody who believes in the teachings, you think he was mortal, in fact you think maybe he didn't even exist, but you believe in the teachings, you don't believe there's a God, that is called a Christian atheist. They are out there. They're like, nope, can't. It's a contradiction in terms. I don't care that it's in the dictionary, yada, yada, yada. It's just like, okay, that's what I oppose. I oppose this dogmatic belief that other people are going to follow the definitions we say, do as we say, so on and so forth. So who cares how they self-identify? I've had people come up to me and say, you're not an atheist, you're agnostic. I'm like, okay, fine, I'm agnostic. If that's what I am by your definition, great. Now let's have the discussion. But so it's not my team isn't atheists or anti-theists. My team is people who are interested in genuine inquiry and trying to make the world a better place. That's my team, and we disagree with each other all the fucking time,
No.
but that's my team.
Well, yeah. Well, and not only that is I want the world to be a better place too, and I'm also willing, especially with you. You know, like I said, if I don't believe somebody's an honest interlocutor, then I'm not going to give up all of this, you know, for them to just, because then they're just going to focus on beating me over the head with that stuff. Even though I think it's perfectly reasonable,
You
that's
once
all they're
said
going to
that.
focus
Yeah,
on.
well, I was going to say that, which is I've said things to you that I was like, you know what? Now that I think about it, here's where you brought up some really good points, and I would be far less inclined to cede that to somebody if all of a sudden they would take that, and every time I said, boom, 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 like, oh well, that's not what you said. It's like there's nuance, and this isn't to be weaponized. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
apologize. I think I cut you off.
If
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I could get to the exact same position that you hold on guns, where you believe that pretty much all guns should just be gotten rid of entirely. You know, the police shouldn't have them, private citizens shouldn't have them. You know, and if I thought, or I could see a viable way for that to happen and not endanger people, I could get myself to your position and be willing to give up all of the guns. I don't see how that's possible, especially in the United States. I don't see how that is possible. And I want the ability to protect myself and my family, especially my home and stuff. I want that protection and the best tools available to do it for myself, because I don't trust the government. I don't trust police. You know, I mean, I trust police to get involved where they shouldn't and not get involved where they should. And I'm not completely anti-police. I think that we should have police. I don't want to get rid of them. I think that they're woefully undertrained, woefully underpaid for the job that we expect them to do, and we expect them to do far more than they should.
You there?
I am here.
If it is the case where cops are not picking up the slack, and they will not defend your home to the level which you deserve, how we can have arguments over what that means, but if that's the case, you absolutely have to have the fucking right to defend yourself, and that has to include guns, obviously. So it's sort of like, oh fuck, he's got a reasonable position. What the fuck do I do now? Anyways, so
yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and of course, you know, I hate to keep coming back to, because I don't like this argument. The founders intended.
yeah.
Because the founders aren't alive anymore. They're not the ones living in our country. So you know, in today's day and age, I think that we should listen to the wisdom of our founders, because they lived through some shit. They were some brilliant people, flawed, not perfect, but they had some, you know, just because somebody's a flawed individual doesn't mean that their argument is flawed as well. You know, and they made some very good arguments about things, and they lived through some things, and we should pay attention to what they were trying to do and the reasons behind what they were trying to do. But we shouldn't just be slavishly, well, they intended this. But when you put together the Second Amendment, they had just finished whoa, there went my phone. They just finished fighting a war against a tyrannical government, and they wanted to make sure that they had the there we go, that they had the means to do so in the future. So if their great experiment failed, the people would have an ultimate recourse. And I still think that's a valid issue. I mean, when you look around, countries still fail on a regular basis, even today.
Yes, they do.
You know,
government still failed. The U.S. almost failed in 2007, 2008, by the way.
Yes. Yes, that was that, and they weren't the only ones. How in the heck we got out of that without the immense amount of pain that should have come is shocking to me. That I'm constantly amazed at the ability of governments to manipulate things around to kick problems down the road and not actually address them.
Yeah, that's and corporations too. That, by the way, was that's what I liked about what happened with Greenspan too. They're like, well, gee, how do you explain this when Rand, who Greenspan was a protege of, when Rand predicts that this shouldn't have been able to happen the way it did, he's just like, I can't. He goes, this should not have been possible. It's like, yeah, you know what? It turns out corporations can kick the can down the road too, especially when the CEO can goose the stock, get extra money off of that, and then bail on a golden parachute, knowing full well they sold the future of the company up the river. So,
Yeah, and
yeah,
some of those large corporations and governments are doing the exact same thing, and the fact that they're getting in bed with each other, you know, and we're suffering from a lot of corporatism. It's like every single argument that I've ever heard against, you know, a capitalistic market-based economy from people who come straight out and say they're socialists, that they don't believe capitalism is a good system at all. All of the arguments, just about everyone, maybe I'm missing one or two that aren't based in this, are all based on corporatism, not capitalism.
yeah,
And when the government and corporations get in bed with each other, bad things happen. And we have that today. We've got it's rife today. I mean, look at most of the largest companies in our country are in bed with government. You know, because they figured that that's the best way for them to get ahead. So, and one of the reasons why I want a federal government that is not as powerful, doesn't do as many things, is because you know, anytime you have a very powerful mechanism, people are going to fight over control over that mechanism. If it allows you a great amount of power over others, people will fight to control that. That's what happened in the Dark Ages with religious sects trying to get a hold of governments, country governments. Well, if you remove said tool, people aren't going to be fighting over it anymore, and it's not going to be used against other people. That's one of the reasons why I don't like large federal governments.